From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training podcast. We have a listener request to continue our long-lost passing series. I'm Bill.
All right.
Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicky.
I'm Ben Dawson.
And it's Blake Field back again for more passing discussion fun.
That's right.
Yeah. I wouldn't say long lost. I would say long awaited. Awaited next chapter of this. We want to help our followers and listeners get better at executing and dominating on track, right?
Yep. I believe that everybody on this podcast had a bunch of life hit them in the intervening weeks and months since we did this.
Yeah, life happens outside of racing, as we've been discovering.
Yes,
I believe in the face.
I believe Ben got hit in the face this evening as we speak. So
indeed,
yeah,
looks like it,
love.
at least.
It's all love.
It is necessary.
But yeah, it's great to be back again, like tag team, and totally stoked to get back into the racing mindset after having to do adult stuff.
Well,
has it been long enough that we should do a recap of the things we talked about in the last one, just so if people want to refer back to it, they'll know, hey, if I go back to this one, here's what's in that one. Did we have about top 5 things we did in that one?
I think so. So for those of us, I haven't looked up the show number because I don't keep track of show numbers. Sorry. We started our passing series with Blake and Ben. Vicky was, I think she had spent the entire week in the garage trying to fix something that, one of us had broken, which is not very difficult to do. And she just said, I don't got it. So we went through quick definitions. We talked about dive bombing, what is and what isn't. We talked about passing rules, because different organizations have different rules. We talked a little bit about signals. We talked the basics of passing, how to do it if you're slower, same speed, faster, and whose responsibility it is for preventing contact. And the correct answer is
everybody's.
Everybody.
Okay.
So we're about to continue on, and if we do anything, we tend to have long podcasts, and we tend to talk for a very long time. So according to this document we have here, this is part 2 of many. And
also we invited an attorney because we want to make sure that the talk goes on and on.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, yeah. Get paid by the hour. Here we go.
Right. That's right. We're the word, apparently. But if you do have some questions or comments or topics of passing, it's very easy for us to add them into our document, and you'll just be subjected to yet another part. So feel free to send them in. GarageHeroesInTraining@gmail.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we left off. We were going to get into the topic of setting up a pass.
Yeah.
Ooh, one of my favorite things to do.
It's always good, as opposed to just blasting your car through the hole that does not exist.
Yeah, or hitting somebody, right?
Well, that's always to be avoided. Nobody likes body work. Even guys who do body work don't like body work.
It's true. Yeah, it's a waste of time.
It is. It is. So setting up a pass is fairly easy when you are significantly faster than the other car. But what about if you're kind of the same?
When I'm in a situation where maybe I'm racing against a car, maybe you're in a Miata and you're racing an E30 or something like that, or even if you're 2 E36s racing each other and you're having a tough time, finding a place where there's an advantage, even within that little microcosm of pace where this person, I feel like I'm being held up by maybe a second a lap or so, but it's hard to just jump out and take it because there's not an obvious place. At least in my case, it means that the pass might take longer while I'm trying to figure out okay, in this part of the track, I'm having to back off earlier than I was before, so I must be usually doing this part of the track better. And then, I might have to work out like how am I going to exploit the fact that I get into turn 7 better than this person does, or that I exit this corner better. Maybe I can take them all the way out. So I mean, to me, it's just involves a little bit more planning. It's just not as obvious how you're going to execute the pass right away, right?
Certainly,
they're going
yeah.
down.
And for me, in addition to those, technical analyses that are happening as to where am I faster versus where is the other driver faster, et cetera, et cetera. I'm also going to be doing things like,
here we go. Here we go.
I'm all in your mirrors. Like, you don't know which way I'm going to go. I'm over here.
Right.
I'm over there. Right. And I'm not trying to be like reckless and stupid about it, but, at the same time, definitely staying on the edge of aggression there and making that driver have to drive in their mirrors more than what they otherwise might, and giving myself an advantage in that way.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're making them feel some pressure. Because I mean,
right.
once you feel some pressure, you're going to start doing stuff differently. Even if you think you're not going to, making them feel some pressure is good. You're right. I definitely was just kind of getting into the weeds of like the technicality of how to execute it. But you're right. There's so much more gamesmanship you can deploy if you need to. I mean, there are plenty of times where you won't need to do any of that kind of stuff, but there will be times where you need to get a little dramatic. Like I'll park myself half a lane out. Sometimes let them think a pass is about to happen. There's times where if it's a pretty competitive situation, all the feints I try, like all the fakes I do, might be nowhere near where I'm actually going to do it. You know what I mean? I might fake them out and then just go somewhere where I've always acted straight. Or if it's a car I think might be kind of complicit once I get to them, if I trust that driver, I trust that team, kind of have an idea how it's going to go because I did it, 20 laps ago, and have some confidence. I might show like the lap before I can actually get there. I might pop out as if I was going to, like I'm a little eager beaver, like, oh, I think I'm almost going to get it, but this is where it's going to happen. So it just depends. To me, it depends on how competitive or how sneaky I feel like I need to be. So sometimes I'll do the fakes everywhere, but where it's actually going to happen. And then there's times where I'm going to pop out a lap earlier in an unrealistic time where I know I actually can't get there. I'm going to pop out like, hey, here's where it's going to be. If I trust that car to not be a dick and understand that this is a cooperative effort and we're going to do this together.
Or if I'm Bill Fisher and I'm much more cerebral than
the other. I know there's two Bill Fishers on the Lemons group. The one guy spells it without the C.
Then what I'm going to do when I'm trying to set up a pass with a car that we're tight in lap times and we're close, and I just don't have a power advantage to have like the Corvette advantage and just flooring it and blasting by.
I just push on it harder.
I'm just going to wait for some traffic to show up. I'm going to wait.
I love riding traffic through. Yeah.
I love riding
traffic. And then there you go. And I'm going to use the traffic to pick them off.
Mm-hmm.
So Miss Vicky.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Have you gotten to the point where you try to set up your passes or think about where your passes are coming when you're trying to pass somebody?
Yes, I have. I'm working on that part. Yes.
Tell me more.
Well, I'm at the point, and I think I brought this up in one of our other segments, that I'm starting to see the offline passing when I'm trying to follow somebody who's strictly on the line. Mm-hmm. Which is it's tricky to kind of predict on how, at this point in my learning, how to set that up. But I am visualizing it and I can see it. It's just engaging the car with the right speed to do it. And usually I'm catching them on the turns is where I'm seeing it most.
What do you mean by that?
Curves in the turns. So if somebody is driving on the line and they're strictly driving like, say for instance, through the S's or something like that, mm-hmm. and it's a matter of seeing the offset line to try to pass them in that area if you can, if it's wide enough to do so, because sometimes they either might slow up or they might make an error in that area, to see if I could go ahead and make a pass in that. I'm visualizing it. I haven't engaged it.
So are you relying on them to have an error or something you can take advantage of, or are you just...
Yes. For me at this point, I am, because my speed is not there to meet up with theirs. So it's usually that I'm running neck and neck with another car and we've been playing tag team the entire time. How am I going to get past this person? Because our speeds are relatively equal. And that's the only way I can see is try to wait for them to either make an error or try to catch them when they're in a slowing position where I can go ahead and make an offline pass on him through maybe a curve or maybe a bowl or something like that.
So one more thing before we open the floor. Do you take into account where you're going to pass them and what they're able to do and what you're able to do? And have you passed a car, even though you passed them, they just immediately passed you back because you did it in the wrong spot and they had an advantage? Usually the advantage is they have more horsepower than we do.
Yeah. I don't really know exactly how to answer that question.
Just say
to be
yes.
honest. Okay, yes. But no, seriously, I don't it's us playing. It's usually because I'm playing with a guy and I've already followed him and we've been playing this game around the track a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's either that or I wait for the train to come through and I hop on the back of the train.
That's your favorite.
That's my favorite thing to do. I love doing that. It was when all this the class.
She's smoking the bandits people all the time.
Is
yeah,
right?
if I see them coming, I know they're coming. I know the people. I know the cars. They're trucking through, and because everybody's already has an opening for them, usually because that's how the race goes.
Somebody else wedged the hole open, right?
Right.
Somebody else wedged the hole for you. You just
right. It's like following the ambulance. You know, they've already opened the hole, and you just run through it. And I try to do that. I'm serious. I love doing that.
No,
if I can do it, I do it.
I'm just laughing at something else that you said. We were talking about
great guitar players. Great guitar players.
We were talking about Smokey and the Bandit just now, and the plant manager, the plant where I work, broke his leg on his motorbike. And this he came back finally to work, and his leg's all swollen. He keeps pulling his pants leg up to show everybody the injury, but he also looks like it's killing him. I'm like, don't show me. I don't need to see it. I'm sure it's bad. But everybody he sees, he's slowly like pulling that pants leg up to show him there's gruesome surgery scars and motorcycle scars. It's so gross. But here's the big payoff. So he's riding around the plant on a floor scrubber with like ice packs taped to his leg so he can do his work. And he's riding the floor scrubber around. And I took a picture of it and put it up on Twitter and said, I told the whole story about what he's doing. Somebody immediately was like, yeah, his new nickname is Dirt Reynolds. And it's what everybody's calling him.
Nice.
Nope. I've got another candidate for you.
Oh yeah, what you got? We'll give him several nicknames before this is over, I'm sure.
He's the Zambroni Jabroni.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Zambroni.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Thank
you very much.
I'm not sure the floor scrubber constitutes a reasonable accommodation but
keeps the plant clean.
You know,
I've been told to reach out to you just to see what his options are.
I'm not sure ride the floor scrubber is a reasonable but
he needs a bumper sticker with that on it. Ride the floor scrubber.
He has crutches. He has crutches. So he's just a crazy person. This guy wrecked his bike previously and broke his leg before my time at this plant.
Terrible.
And tried to bring his broken leg to work. Like, no, go to the hospital. You broke your leg on your little motorbike. Go to the hospital. Anyway,
right,
sorry, that was a full digression.
Don't be here.
I just had to go off on that.
Let me ask the crowd a question here, if I may, and it has to do with you're in traffic. You've got another car that you're trying to set up a pass with. Closely matched car. You might have an advantage here or there. They might have an advantage there or here. Mm-hmm. At what point, if you guys are working through traffic together effectively, do you just say, you know what? I don't need to keep pushing the pass. We're working through traffic well, and maybe it's better to keep the teamwork going here rather than go for the pass. What do you say about that, Bill?
0% of the time.
You never want to do that? You never want to link up with somebody?
I haven't yet. There's always been, if I catch them on the track, there's always an area where I'm significantly faster than them. So they would be slowing me down.
I see.
It's true. I don't know if I've seen that kind of scenario pop up that many times in like lemons, but I mean, I had just happened like the time I raced AER at Watkins Glen. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I was in like the crappiest Miata there, and there was a group of much better Miatas, but I was able to kind of get in the Miata group. And I had fun whether I was at the back of that pack or whether I kind of bump drafted my way to the front or bump back down to the third. But we were all running very similar pace, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it wasn't exactly complicit because if I had been able to motor my way out to the front and leave them, I would have. But since it's kind of where we were, we all had a bunch of fun and chopped through a bunch of slower traffic.
I'm not saying that I haven't been for several laps passing and being passed by the same car. That's absolutely happened, but I don't think I've ever been in a position where, we just kind of linked up and started doing our drafting and taking on the rest of the field. So hopefully someday it will happen, but a lot of the cars are just so different and the drivers change. So
Sure.
we may be identical, car versus car, me versus driver A, but when they go to driver B or we go to not driver me, we could literally be 10, 15 seconds a lap different, total. Right. So it just hasn't happened that much. But
yeah, I think the question is based on a premise that there's going to be a lot of traffic on the track to start with.
Yes.
Right.
I'll tell you when I do it.
Go ahead.
I'd do it. If I was, if my team had a pretty good car, if we were within top 10 pace, a time when I would for sure do it is if we had lost 20 minutes in the morning to some BS that we messed up. And we still have a good chance to maybe finish well by the full end of the weekend. And if I find somebody I could slice and dice with the traffic and I'm, 30th and I was, 32nd 2 laps ago and we're making production and stuff's going great and it's not crucial, if I'm pretty far back, that's a great time to give us somebody a ride too. Because you don't need a bunch of drama. I mean, if it's the last 5 laps of the race and you're trying to pass somebody for the lead, then stuff might get kind of dramatic. But there are definitely times to kind of know when to pull your punches. If you find somebody who's doing similar pace to you and they're willing to punch the hole for a while, I don't mind riding with them, especially if they're not holding me up too much. If I'm losing pace, I'm gone. If I'm losing more than a second a lap or something, if I feel like they're holding me up that bad, I'm gone. But if I'm pretty close, I'll ride.
What about you, Miss Vicky? Is your microphone on?
Yeah, I mean, like Bill said, we usually have the same problem of just we're in different time speeds when we're in lemons, whether my sister hops in there or I'm in there, and then again it all depends on if I'm like chasing a car.
If there's a pickup truck nearby, she is not.
There's a pickup truck. Well, no, that was when I was now I'm going to try to go after Hondas, but
that's a much harder prey.
It is going to be a much harder one. No, but I mean, when it comes to it, I guess it just all depends the situation.
You've been interviewing Ross Bentley again, haven't you? It depends.
A lot of different answers could apply here.
Yeah.
Right.
What about you, Blake? You asked a question. We get to ask you back.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. My thoughts are, since typically I'm doing endurance racing, and if I'm hooked up with somebody that's approximately the same speed, and if we've done some back and forth passing and haven't really gotten anywhere with it, and it's not going to be a super productive use of my focus and time to continue to try to get this one pass done, when meanwhile we are cutting through traffic effectively, making production, like Ben said, then I'm fine with dialing it back. I'm like, all right, Hoss, you got it. You're faster. I'm just going to follow you. Look at you go, and just maybe save some fuel during that time. Maybe take advantage of less risk for my car, because if you're going through traffic and you're the lead car, you almost certainly have more risk. Notwithstanding the fact that we talked about, if you're a second car passing and are behind, like Vicky, you were just talking about riding the train, getting on with the faster cars going by, then there's always the risk we talked about last time, and something I see frequently, of the car that's being passed expects cars number 1 and number 2 or whatever to be hauling by, and they don't necessarily expect this other car all of a sudden to also be taking that opportunity, and so they close the door or something stupid like that. But yeah, I think that there's a benefit to not being simply passing minded all of the time on the track at every moment. So
I think that's something that you kind of alluded to, but might be worth talking about a little bit more, is that if you're with a similarly paced car and you two are duking it out and having dog fights all the time all over the track, you're also surrendering pace. You're assuming a lot more risk and you're surrendering pace because you're giving up a bunch of track position you don't have to give up just to fight with each other. And so, like you said, like once you two have had a couple of goes at each other and realize this isn't going anywhere, we're not getting away from each other, then that's a great time to just team up. Because you could draft, save some fuel, especially if you're a little bit faster than that person. Overall, that means you can save some fuel by letting off and kind of let them roll down hard in the corner. Then you can just let off early because you know where they're going to stop, right? So you can just run right up to the sort of the end of their braking and probably be braking a little bit less, save on fuel and brakes. So I can think of a number of ways that would benefit you, especially if you're not in a crucial situation, or if you're leading the race by 2 laps and you come up on somebody who you should be passing, but they're pretty fast and they see the leader coming and they want to run fast because they don't want to get a lap down for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, but people just see the leader coming and they park up. If they're running faster than you want to, and you got 2 laps on the field and you're already running. You and that guy are already running faster than anybody else in the field is running. You got no reason to push by, unless you're just a hard ass and
faster than everybody. But look forward to it someday.
It's a good feeling.
I need to listen to more Dominic Dawson's.
I think for especially new drivers, but really anybody that's out there racing, you get into this sort of hyper competitive mindset, and having that voice in your head to know and be able to dial it back is like the utmost of racecraft to my mind. Be able to have that voice in there that can actually be like, hey, no, Haas, just reel it in here, because like the scenario Ben was just talking about, you're 2 laps up on the field. You're blasting through everybody here. And you come up on a slower car. You don't need to force it. You don't have to race this person. Or if somebody, like Ben had mentioned, you come up on traffic and you're the race leader and they start to perk up. And now they're taking more risks because they want to be racy with the race leader. You know what? As the race leader, if you're 2 laps up and you are prudent and smart and you have that essence of racing in you and you have that voice, that voice says, hey, you know what? Just point them by. Just point them by. You 2 laps up. You don't have to race this person. Go let them be dangerous in front of you.
Yeah, and if they're pushing harder, they're also being extra dangerous, more dangerous than they already were. So they're going to mess up around you.
Sure. And that's all easily said. But again, I think for racers, probably the most difficult lesson to consistently apply.
So since what we do is mostly multi-class racing, we typically aren't in the spec fields where you have 15 or 20 cars that are the same. The odds on our cars with each of us driving being identical to another car on the track is very low. So usually there's going to be areas where you have an advantage and areas where the other car may have an advantage, or truck. You never know. So how do you guys think about finding the areas where you do have an advantage, or identifying areas where you don't have an advantage, and how do you? Does it matter?
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge part. I think it's a huge part of accomplishing passing. I mean, you're, at least to my mind, that's an assessment that you're constantly making. I mean, there's just a whole there's a whole fabric of the race that you're in, and part of that is understanding how fast the cars around you are. So to me, I'm just always sort of building information in my head about those kind of cars and thinking about, I'm better than that Mustang getting into the corner, but he blows me away down the straightaway. Whatever that kind of thinking is, and some of it comes down to generalities, like this type of car, this car. I know this car should be able to do blah blah blah. So you kind of have a data set in your head already that includes a lot of these things. Like, oh, I'm driving a Miata, so that that Cadillac 78 Cadillac Eldorado that's going 100 miles an hour faster than me, I'm definitely going to eat his lunch on the brakes. I'm going to let him do whatever he wants down the straightaway, and then we'll see what I can do when we get into the brake zone. He has to jump on before the 5 brake marker, and I'm going to jump on the brakes at the 2. We'll kind of see how this balances out. So that's kind of, you're sort of assessing your, at least to me, I'm constantly assessing how does my car or what I can do in this car stack up against the people next to me. And so that, I don't know. Do you have a specific time where you pull up on somebody like, okay, it's time for me to assess this driver in this car?
I kind of do.
Yeah, tell me about it.
As soon as I can see him, I start doing it.
Right. There you go.
Because I want to know. I want to know before I get there whether what matters or not. If I've got an advantage, ideally, if I've got an advantage and I know the track well, especially, I'm going to try to figure out not only where I have an advantage, but where I have a distance of that advantage where I don't immediately get repassed,
Right.
Because
that's something to think about when you're pulling your pass. Is like, am I going to pass this person right here? Then they're just going to blow right by me, or should I pass them where I've got a little bit more advantage past the passing area too?
Exactly.
If possible. Yeah.
And we have guest Santa Claus. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hello.
Hey, thank you.
So, Jeremy, we're talking about setting up a pass and determining where you have an advantage and if it's important to determine that and how you use that information. So, since you have passed many more people than Vicky and I, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely important to figure out where your advantage is. I just came into the middle of that and what you said, and it was absolutely correct in terms of
say that again.
You need to know.
Vicky didn't hear you. Vicky didn't hear you. Just say it one more time.
Vicky, I'm so sorry. That's twice that I've done that to him.
That was Bill likes to be right.
Oh, wow, it's hard for you to say.
It's a state of
so
being
hard
for me. State of being.
I'm never right.
So no, it is very important to know if you're going to have that advantage, and unless you really want to play leapfrog for the rest of the lap. If you know that there's a place where you have an advantage and you know that you can, get done out, like you said, without being repassed, it's absolutely, critical in passing and making a safe pass. And that's something that you need to set up. If there's a car that you're a little quicker on, but you've been behind, let's say you've been behind that car by 6 car lengths for the last 3 laps, and there's 3 cars in between you, you need to know where you are better, where you are stronger in order to make that pass and make that pass stick.
So we're getting to the point of like, how would you actually do that? Like, what would you almost physically or visually do to determine that?
Like,
Well, what I'm thinking about is, Ben, you and I raced together at Road Atlanta in the 1985 Chevy S10, the mighty 808.
the great 08.
As we all know, first generation S10s were not designed with aerodynamics in mind whatsoever.
Nope.
And so we're talking about knowing where you're faster on track versus not, where to initiate, that kind of thing. Yeah. 808 is a surprisingly fast vehicle for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
it surprised a lot of people that weekend. I remember people were like, "Whoa, what were you driving that truck?"
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I love it, right? But
we need some truck on truck violence. Jeremy's still got the El Jefe.
Nice. Yeah, that's the Isuzu S10, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw that at New Jersey Motorsports Park.
The Isuzu S10.
And yeah, it's amazing. So I know that, especially on tracks like Road Atlanta, that I am going to have a disadvantage down the giant back straight. Like, I'm going to hit an aerodynamic wall a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the V8 power that, so I have to know, like, okay, yeah, maybe I could pass this person for 30 yards coming out of this corner and then just eat it, or I can hold up and get a draft down the straight as much as possible. So those are the types of things that are in my mind. Like, the 808 can outbrake almost everything out there, at least for a few laps before they get really hot and spongy. And so, maybe I'll just wait and outbrake you into the corner at the end of the straight. But coming onto the straightaway, I'm going to hold up, let you draft. You got it, Hoss. I'll be back here. No big deal.
Where does this is kind of a weird one to think about, but outside of the mechanical capabilities of the car, where do you start bringing your own ability into the equation of, can I pass this turkey? Because I mean, to me, I'm rolling around there assuming I'm doing this better than everybody. So I pull up, even if you know, if I'm in a Volkswagen Bug and I catch up to a Corvette, I caught you. I'm doing it. You know, so at least to me, part of it, I'm always kind of making probably bad faith assumptions about skill, especially maybe different series, but I'm usually making some pretty bad faith assumptions about the skills of the other driver and just assuming I'm going to roll on no matter what they drop. Many times I'm right, but you know what I mean. Does that come into anybody else's head, or are y'all just are you just assessing mechanical to mechanical? Here's what's happening, because there's a lot more stuff going on than that.
No, for me, I feel like if you are operating a race vehicle on the track, that you have to have that mindset. Like you're in a race, you have to feel like that you are faster than the other person, that you have the chops to be able to do it. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in the race. Is my feeling on it, right?
Thank you for the validation.
Absolutely, yeah. Now
I was feeling a little bit dickish. I just wanted to get it out there and say that's good. I'm thinking all the time.
Well, yeah.
You should still feel dickish, Ben. Don't worry.
Yeah, sure. I am dickish, but maybe not for that specific thing.
Right.
I view it as the pair, right? Like the cars that dominate speed wise near us in the Northeast, it's usually going to be Amanda's BMW. It's going to be the 3-pedal Mafia's RX 3.8. It's there's a few cars that are just they're fast, right?
Wait, do they have an RX-7 with a 3.8 engine in it?
Yeah.
Jesus,
like the Buick
3.8,
the supercharged 3.8.
No, it's not supercharged, but it feels like it.
Oh, I see.
But,
okay. We're talking about the Volkswagen 3.8, not
the GM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So,
but it's in an RX-7.
Yeah. It's fast.
Jesus Christ! I bet that thing's a rocket ship.
Yeah,
it is.
Whose car is that?
Bruce's car.
An invitation.
Bruce and Craig.
Bruce,
That's
out there. I gotta drive that car.
Towley.
And it's not the supercharged version of it?
No, doesn't have to be.
Doesn't need to be, baby. If it's out like a Sabre, like a Buick Sabre engine, that generation.
Yep, that's the 3800 that's in there. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
Or our
Volkswagen so bad.
Yeah, or Jeremy's Volkswagen. So, but you know they're fast, but it doesn't happen often. But it depends on who's driving it. You know, so I view it as the car may have advantages and disadvantages, but the driver's ability to take advantage of those advantages and minimize those disadvantages varies widely. You know, usually Amanda's car is driven by very good drivers. Usually Bruce and Greg, they drive their car very good on Saturday, and then Sunday morning you got a chance.
That's because they've been up all Saturday.
All night.
It depends on how Saturday night goes. You know, it's just one of those things.
Gambling, or they've been whoring, or they've been doing horrible substances. But you've made some bad implications. That's the things.
Depends on if Bruce is thrown up in his helmet.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing is you're going to pass it Sunday morning, but about 15 laps later, the thing's going to go by you like you literally dropped an anchor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the train that I follow.
Right.
It's funny. We have the inverse around here. There's a third gen Camaro that races chump car around here, and it sounds really healthy when you hear it running. You see it, all the things. The car looks great. I'm like, that thing should be a fast car, but it never is. And then one year at the South Course race, I'm out there and I had to bust my hump to try to get by it. And I finally, at the end of the race, I walked by the trailer and the guy sweaty in a driver's suit next to where the trailer was. So I was like, were you driving the Camaro? And that last one goes, yeah. It's like, wow, all these years I've been racing with that car thinking how fast it should be. It finally was. And like they put somebody fast in there. He's like, yeah, it was his only time. He'd never driven that car before. He was like, yeah, they wanted to get somebody good in here to see what it would do. I'm like, well, that's what it'll do. Finally, now we know.
But you know what? There's a lot to be said for that. If you have somebody in your car who doesn't break it, that can drive the car to the limit, so you have an idea on how fast do you have the potential to get to.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Great to benchmark. It's always good to benchmark if you have an opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've talked about around and round and round. How do you guys tell, and lady? So I'm not just addressing Blake and Ben. I'm talking to Jeremy and Vicky. How do you guys tell where it's an obvious question for those who race, but for those who are just getting into it, it may not be that obvious. How do you tell where you have an advantage and where you don't?
Where am I catching this person? Where are they leaving me? Those are the two things.
Mm-hmm.
Am I decreasing the gap in this area? that specifically tells me that me and my car are executing this section better. If they were 30 yards away going into this corner and now I'm on their back bumper, this is one opportunity. If we're coming out of this corner, I'm right on their bumper, but by the next braking zone, they're out 30 yards, then I have a disadvantage on the straightaway. You know what I mean? If we came out together and then they left me down the straightaway, that means I'm not going to get the pass done in the middle of the straightaway. That's a time where I'm recuperating position and hoping to close the gap back down and try again.
Jeremy, you look like you wanted something on that one.
Oh, no, I was going to say exactly what Ben just said. You know, and to break it down a little bit more, like he said, like when you're coming into a braking zone, are you all of a sudden slamming on the brakes and trying to avoid hitting them? You know, that's where you've got an advantage. If you're out braking that person, there you go. There's your advantage right there. And like he said, if you come out of a corner and you're right on their bumper and they take off, you're not going to pass them there. There's no point in even trying.
Okay. So the correct answer is is not how close you are in distance. It's how close you are in time. Because you can be 1 second behind somebody going 100 miles an hour and they're going to be pretty far down the road. But if you're 1 second behind them in a 20 mile an hour zone, like a tight turn, you're going to be really close to them. It's time, not distance. So don't trick yourself. Nobody cares. Okay, very well.
The correct answer is if you were out driving that person,
yes,
you are faster and you have an advantage to make that pass in that particular section.
Okay. All right. We'll agree that you're wrong. Yeah, that's fine.
What we're saying is, where are you and your car doing better than they are? Where are you gaining track position and losing it? I mean, and ultimately, yes, it's all related to time too, but in the execution, in the minutia of being on track and trying to pass somebody, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And but the thing that you that I would recommend to everybody who's listening to this is start doing this early, because you're not going to pass somebody on one lap that you couldn't see 3 turns or 20 turns before. You've been behind them. The speed discrepancies aren't that high. And we're talking about cars that you're close to. It's going to take you a while to catch up. And while you're catching up, you can be paying attention to where you are catching them.
Sure.
And where you're not, so that you now can begin to develop your plan. And planning's important because you want to complete the turn, complete the pass, get by them, and then put some distance. And then once, it's kind of like when you pass somebody on a highway, right? If I'm passing somebody on a highway, amazingly, they decide now it's time to go fast. They were doing 65. I'm going by them at 75. Lies. I'm going by them.
Welcome to driving in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Exactly. Right. And then amazingly, I'm passing them at 75. And then all of a sudden they're doing 80. And it's just like, so you once you're done with the pass, you want to be in a zone where you have an advantage continuing, ideally, and you want to get a gap, because when you get a gap, they go back to driving their slow way, as opposed to, the old, well, if the guy in front of me can do it, I can do it too. And you're actually helping them go faster, because they see, like, hey, these jerks in this Civic with the garage doors and training in front of, they're going around this turn at 80. And I've been doing 70 the whole time. Oh, I could do 80 too. You try to minimize the amount of learning that you give them.
Right.
Sure.
I think that one very important aspect to this determination for those of us who mostly do endurance racing, and that's certainly my frame of reference, is how is the car that you are to be passing being affected by the degradation in performance as the car gets hot, as the tires get hot, as the brakes get hot, right? Notwithstanding,
as the driver gets hot.
Some
people get angry when you pass them.
Well, or physically hot.
Exactly.
We're talking about people getting heat stroke and puking in their helmets and whatnot all the time. And it can be definitely very physically demanding, depending whether you got cool suits, ventilation, that kind of a thing. And so hanging back and getting a read not only on where you're faster, but as from lap to lap or corner to corner, even depending on how hot brakes are getting, whether their performance is degrading and where you can take advantage of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, that's so. Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, I was just going to pop in with a counterpoint to what Blake said and what Bill was talking about as far as trying to get a read on somebody. And let me tell you something, comrades. I am of the approach where I am going to get that read done on the way up to that car, but I'm not going to sit. Hopefully, if I've done my job reading that car and how I'm going to pass them right on the lap or two where I've started to be able to see them, then I'm hoping that by the time I'm close enough to do it, I'm going to damn do it. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to ride around any extra time and see like, hey, is this guy's brakes fading? Like, is this guy getting tired on me? Like, no, if I've got the pace, I'm going to do it. If I'm really hanging around struggling, I'll do what y'all are talking about, like get into an in-depth analysis. But I'm hoping that on the way to that car, which I've had a few corners, a lap or two to observe it, I'm hoping I've got a pretty good idea about how I'm going to get by him and just damn shoot on through and do it.
And that's exactly what I was going to say was I'm setting the pass up as I'm, lap after lap after lap, paying attention to all the cars in front of me as far as I can see. If I got cars that are similar to the same pace as I am, I can see where they're strong. I can see where they're not strong. You can see all that before you even get to that car to make that pass. So I like to tell people, set the pass up 5 turns in advance.
At least.
Okay. So that by the time you are there, because typically on most tracks, you can roughly see 5 turns ahead, right? So by the time you get there, you know where you're going to be stronger than them, and you're going to make that pass, get it done, and get out of the situation as quick as possible. Because honestly, to be honest, I look at passing as when you pass someone, the most dangerous part of your pass has just now started, because most people, like on the freeway, they hate to be passed. So now they're going to overdrive that car to try to get back on your bumper and try to pass you again, because they were just in front of you and they didn't see you for 17 laps. So how are you all of a sudden faster than they are, right? So you want to get that pass done and get away as quick as possible, and not do that pass in a spot where you guys are very similar, and now you're all of a sudden finding a battle, and now you've both slowed each other down.
Like turn 1 at pit race.
Turn 1 in pit race.
Yeah.
I know my feelings have never been hurt after I've been passed. I know I've never had irrational thoughts.
Well, you've never been passed, Ben. So, there's that.
Of course.
But honestly, there are a lot of people, especially Sunday afternoon in a Lemons race with 110 cars on track. There are a lot of people that it's the red mist comes now that they just got passed.
Right.
And Northeast Lemons must be so weird. I got to get out there and see what the hell you people
Northeast is aggressive. They're like New York drivers on the track.
It also depends on which car you're driving, right? Like Ben and I drove this Volvo wagon out on the West Coast. People especially hate to be passed by a Volvo wagon.
Yeah.
People don't enjoy being passed by a Chevy Isuzu S10 either.
Right. Yeah. The S10s hate it. Right. You got your Camaro, you got your Mustang, you got your Miata or whatever, and this raggedy ass S10 passes you. It hurts. It hurts your feelings. But this is happening. Get over it. Start liking it.
Yeah. It's happening. Right. Here's how it's going to happen. Let's get this done together. Hey, we can do this the easy way or the way that's only fun for me.
Well, since Vicky and I were watching The Mandalorian, we'll go with I can bring it in hot or cold. It's your choice. So
I have spoken.
Exactly. It is the way.
It is the way.
Yes.
Captain's log supplemental.
Miss Vicky.
Yes, sir.
You know what?
What?
I've been thinking about this Sentinel system.
Yeah. Tell me about the Sentinel system.
So what I was thinking was, we have the one car that's got the aim dash that's slowing us down. Because installing the aim dash is it probably is easy, but it's quite hard the first time. And we haven't figured that out yet. The Sentinel system is really easy to set up. So what I was thinking was, why don't we put it in the Lemons car? And we'll worry about the AIM data information separately, and we'll kind of break it down into a project, because then we'd have the motorsports video system that we really, really want, and we'd be able to stream it. We just won't have the data inside, but we have the data outside, so we can combine them later. But I think that's a really good solution.
So what does this Sentinel system do?
Well, if it had the AIM data, it would have all the data on the screen and you could see all their telemetry and everything live. But we'd be able to not only record it for viewing after the race, but we could actually watch our car during the race.
Ooh, like on the monitor and everything?
On a monitor, if you were at home and I was at a track, or if you were at the track and I was at home, depends on who gets the short straw, but we'd be able to watch each other.
It's something I've always wanted to do.
And you know what? If you're driving, you know what you can do on the Sentinel system?
What's that?
You can communicate to me with your hands, and I can't do a thing about it.
Even better.
So, if you need to give a wave or a Jersey wave, whatever you need, we could save it and see it on the screen. And then you can have up to 3 different cameras, and it'll have picture in picture. You'll have the basic main shot out the front window, and then 2 cameras where you put them wherever you want. One could be on the driver or one could be on the rear view. It's kind of cool.
Then we can upload it onto YouTube.
We could bore millions of people on YouTube.
I love it.
All right. Very well. You know what the only downside I see about this?
What?
Your mom and my mom are going to be panic stricken the entire weekend watching this thing to see if everything's going well.
This is true.
We probably shouldn't tell them.
I like the idea of having a Sentinel.
Mm-hmm. Well, luckily we have maybe 2. Depends on how things go. We're going to try. All right. That sounds like a plan. That's the project. We got to get that ready for the next race.
Sounds great.
All right. Very well. Thank you, ma'am. So things that we were watching a video before this started. We'll have to replay the video for Jeremy after this. But
oh man,
things to be avoided in passing.
Okay.
Object fixation.
Blake, I believe this was your cherry bomb that you wanted to drop in this discussion. So
boom, object fixation. I mean, object fixation is to be avoided under any circumstances.
Yes. Not just the racetrack.
Right.
People also call
that.
They call it target fixation or object fixation, right? A couple different names.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. My first encounter with
stalking.
The idea.
Sorry, wrong thing.
Yes, yeah, that's a little far afield there. My first encounter with the idea of target fixation happened when I was doing motorcycle riding classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You did motorcycle riding class, and you're like, okay, whatever you're looking at, you are going to ride over. So if there's something that you want to avoid, look completely elsewhere and you will naturally drive that way. So
yes,
same thing happens when you're driving a vehicle. That's why they say always look where you want the car to be going. And so you get to object fixation. It's just an extension of that. And look at that. You're driving right into what you're staring at, dummy. So there you have it. Object fixation.
But how do we fall into getting sucked into object fixation or target fixation? How does it happen to us?
So I think a lot. Some of that is the person being passed, right? That they're so fixated on driving the line, right, that they're not aware. Situational awareness is not there, so they're fixated on the apex of the corner, right? They have no idea that you're coming up to pass them. Mm-hmm. So they are so fixated on that corner that all of a sudden you make that pass and they have just now turned right into the side of your car.
That has happened to me.
Is that kind of something like you're talking about, Blake?
Yeah, absolutely. Or you have become fixated on as someone who has caught up with a car and is attempting to pass them. You've become so fixated on what they are doing with their vehicle that you forget that you actually need to be driving according to where the racetrack is going and not following where the weirdo that's driving in front of you is going, because they are probably, if they're in front of me, they're probably looking in their mirrors all over the place like, what is this weirdo doing behind me? And they're not paying attention, and they're going to make a mistake and go wide or take a line that is inappropriate or dangerous as a result. And if you are fixated just on them and are following them, you're going to go the exact same way. You're going to have a bad day.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
The other thing that I've seen more than once is some cars. You know how there's cars when we drive in a group, we know everybody eventually. and there's cars that you respect and drivers you respect. And then sometimes there's a subset of those where I start to lose a little bit respect, because when they're passing somebody, they no longer have mirrors. I swear they fell off the car. They don't work. They're all glazed over, and they are fixated on passing that car in front of them, and they don't realize that the car behind them is one of the first place cars, or I would say it's us, but nobody would believe me. But there's a car behind them that's faster than both of those people, but they don't see it because they are dead set on passing the car, and that's when the big ones happen.
So you're saying you can get too focused on what's happening right in front of you, even if it's not necessarily following a driver. You can just get too focused on your specific race situation and not be cognizant of the fact that the leader's coming around, or that you're coming up on is yellow, or so there can be so many different things if you're too micro focused. So it sounds like to me that would be a good time to remember the old ever present adage of keeping your eyes up, and always don't get too micro focused on what's going on around you, and have a big picture of what's happening way up track, near you, mid track, all that kind of thing. I kind of forget about target fixation on my own driving, because I think I'm pretty good at avoiding it. But one of the times when I can really see it creeping in and be aware of it is times when I'm in the car with a student, like at a DE event, and I see the students start to make mistakes following closely behind another car that they want to pass.
Right.
And I'll suddenly realize, like, hey, you're letting them drive your car. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't follow them. They're screwing up. That's why you're passing them. That's usually my mantra, is like, hey, don't get sucked into what this guy's doing, because he's not doing it right. You are. And that's why we were able to drive up and pass him. So get back on your line. I'll start talking to him again about the more mechanical, like, all right, turn in. When I see a student get sort of target fixation, that's when I'll kind of get back more involved into mama bear mode. Be like, all right, brake, turn, pop, kind of get them back in the rhythm and get them off, get them past that driver that they kind of got sucked into and move on. But that's one of the times I most frequently notice target fixation in my life these days. I'll pick up on it with a DE student sometimes, but I'm sure we all do it.
For sure,
we do. I notice it a lot in obviously we're getting off topic a little bit, but I notice a lot with instructing with extreme is I notice that there's a lot of that. They're so focused on trying to pass that car in front of them, right? I'm in a Lambo. I should be able to pass that Porsche. So they're like so focused on what they're doing, what that car in front of them is doing, that they're actually now slowing down because they're not, doing what they need to do.
When we were going through COVID, we decided that we were going to train through COVID, because you didn't really have to be in the room with or in the car with someone. So
paddock was smaller too.
Yeah, the paddock was smaller, and they had everything worked out, but they had the follow the leader for training instead. It was a really hard habit to break, to get my eyes off the car in front of me, because the instructor
because you did follow the leader for so long.
A chunk of our learning was done that way. So now we had to learn the opposite way when we get people back in our cars, was eyes up. It was really hard to get our eyes up and look over the car in front of us. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
That would be, trying to get beyond the fixation part when you're actually out there racing, because now I'm so busy looking at the cars in front of me, I'm not looking up.
Yep.
Bad habits.
I'll be honest with you. I've had that happen to me. I don't know, maybe my, end of my second year racing, I found myself where I was so focused on the car in front of me, I started making mistakes, because I was like, I know I'm a little bit faster and I might be able to pass them. And I was just so focused on what they were doing to try to get up to them that I started making mistakes as a driver, and realized it. And then got out of that, realized it about 4 laps later. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm driving my car, not their car.
Right.
Yep.
Now, the only thing I've done that for was when we've had the trains come through, and I know the driver in the car. Like if it's in Lemons, if it's Amanda and Amanda's team, they are a lot easier to keep an eye on. Oh, okay. So they're a lot easier to keep an eye on because I know that they're more skilled than I am. So following them and watching what they're doing and how they handle a turn for as long as I possibly can until they take off. Now, I think that's the only people that I really try to focus on is those people that are instructors. Yeah.
But with that said, Vicky, you really can't do that in your front wheel drive Volkswagen because their rear wheel drive BMW is a completely different car, completely different set on the track.
About that.
Totally different driving.
Yeah, you are.
I mean, a line is a line, but in endurance racing, and I'm going to say this because a lot of people forget this, in endurance racing on a 1.5-mile track, when you have 110 cars on the track, there is no driving line.
There is. You don't get to use it, but
anywhere is the line. Like you can't be married to a line. You can't be married to a line. You have to be married to the idea of I'm going to make this happen anywhere on whatever they tell me is the is the racing surface.
Yes.
If they're including grass today, I'm going to use the grass. If they're saying dirt is not a racing surface, I'm not using the dirt unless nobody can see me. But yeah, whatever the racing surface has been declared, that is my line. My line is the entire racing surface because I'm gonna get it done. Yes. I've passed people in places you wouldn't believe in Road Atlanta Turn 3. Like, oh, you can't pass somebody there. I've passed somebody in every single inconceivable place you can because if they're going slow enough, I'm not waiting. I'm gonna pass them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna just sit here way behind this person. I'm gonna go a completely wacky route around this person because it's part of the racing line, or the declared racing surface, which I keep making air quotes when I say racing surface, which nobody can see
well
you guys.
on the podcast. I know.
Yeah. Trust me, there's heavy racing quotes around every time I say racing surface because it could be anything. Is whatever your racing organization tells you is the racing surface, then that is the line, baby.
That's the line. And in endurance racing, especially with Lemons and Champ, there is no real racing line in terms of your HPDE driving line. There is no. It's not there.
It's a good reference.
Exactly.
You can watch it go by as you're going around a turn. It's over there.
Right. Now, if you get 10 or 12 turns in your stint where you can actually run the actual racing line, that's the fastest way around that corner, absolutely go for it. Do it. Right? Have fun. Do it. Have at it. But it's not there. It doesn't exist.
Mm-mm. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the second part of the passing racing series, and we've never talked about passes. Favorite passes, types of passes, passes we'd recommend you do, passes we don't recommend you to do.
Keeping your passes done.
Keeping them done. Do we want to do that quickly and then wrap this one so we don't go too terribly long? And part 3 will be coming soon to a theater near you.
There's so much stuff to talk about with passing. I think we're just laying some good groundwork here. Let's go through a little bit about defending your pass once you've done it. Then we'll have a lot more stuff, more stuff to come back for the third installment.
All right. So for third installment, we'll talk about types of passing. Let's talk about defending our pass. Defending our pass.
So once you finally dragged your carcass and your junk heap around somebody's worst carcass and a worse junk heap, how do you make them stay back there and not let them pull the old swippity swap and run right back by you and make you have to do it all over again?
I know.
All right. Okay.
Just do better.
Oh yeah, just be better at it.
Yeah.
Well, I find myself saying that a lot to people. It doesn't happen, but I do say it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bill, the correct answer.
Oh, wow.
Is
that doesn't taste good.
Nice.
I think we actually talked about this earlier, Ben. Is getting that pass set up right, multi turns beforehand. Multi laps beforehand. If you're going to make a pass on a car that you've been let's call it battling, right? Now you need to get by that car. You're going to make that pass. Your smartest choice to safely make that pass is to make that pass in that area that you have just watched for the last 5 laps and up to 6 turns ahead of you, where you can be passed, right? So you make that pass. That is going to give you the best opportunity to pull far enough ahead that you don't have to fight to defend it. You just have to drive as good as you did to make that pass to keep that position so you don't have to really fight hard to defend it. You can start pulling away at that point.
That makes sense.
I mean,
right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. And the thing I try to do mentally is if I have somebody that I'm trying to get by and I finally see my opportunity, it could be an error on their part or it could be where I planned it. Doesn't matter. It ends up the same way. When I get through the pass, when I first started, I would be all happy, which didn't help. When I do it now, I concentrate for the next half a lap at least that I am going to drive the best I can do. The best lap, the best line, the best brakes, the best turn in every single thing. I am so focused on getting a gap from that car that's where I try to drive the absolute best, no errors allowed, just to get the gap. Because once you have the gap, they're gone.
Sure. So can I suggest something, Bill? And I would like you to try this in the next race. Okay. Now, we do endurance racing. We have a ton of cars that are on track. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, when you make a pass, you are now setting up that next pass in front of you.
Oh, okay? For sure. For sure.
So,
oh, yeah.
So once I get by somebody, I know I've gotten by them. And unless I make a drastic mistake, I don't have to defend against them. I don't have to worry about that. What's the next car I got to pass? Where's that next carrot? That next carrot is half a turn away. Right. So I've already forgotten 9 times out of 10. I've already forgotten about that car that I just passed. I'm focused on the next car that I need to pass next.
Well, and also let traffic eat them. The one you just passed, let traffic have them because if you're doing it right, this comes back to the skill assessment thing. But if I'm doing this right, I am always operating on the assumption that I'm better at traffic than you are. So even if you're marginally faster than me and I've just passed you, I'm also going to dump you right behind somebody slow and take off. Like, I mean, if there's any traffic around, my chances for defending a pass go way up because I'm just going to stick you with somebody. I'm going to let traffic have you once I'm done with you. Because also, if I'm timing it right, I'm gonna pinch off that pass in a place that's great for me and bad for everybody else that's right behind me. You know, I mean, there are ways to kind of do this. You know, but I think I wanted to pop back by and talk about something that you pointed out, Jeremy, which is a huge point. Because we've been talking about in this installment, we've been talking about setting up a pass. How do you know when how do you find the ability and the speed and the pace within a lap to execute a pass? How do you plan it? With all that, we've been talking about just doing it with an eye toward just getting the pass accomplished. But now I feel like you're trying to throw in the fact that I need to plan this pass along with the notion of keeping it done. It's earth shattering. Like up to now, we were just kind of planning on just getting by the person and hoping for the best. But it sounds like to me, Jeremy, you're saying that I should include retaining the pass in the plan that I developed, which is earth shattering. But I think very good to point out, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a patient person. I'm a very patient person. I am,
that's why you tolerate me.
Right. Exactly. 99.9% of the time, I'm a very patient person in the car. I'm very calm. But it's when I'm setting up that pass to make that pass, I'm going to make that pass and know that I don't have to defend it. I'm not going to have to defend it because I know that I'm that much faster than that person in that particular area. I'm going to make that pass. And now, okay, I just passed this Fiesta. Now I'm going to go for that Metro.
Yeah.
Well, you're picking hard ones now.
I think defending a pass is something that doesn't come up as often as some people as you might think. I mean, it's not always an equal thing. Like I passed somebody, now I'm gonna have to spend an equal amount of effort defending the pass. I think Jeremy's is basically right, saying like most of the time traffic's going to help you defend the pass. Also, the fact that you are able to pull up and do the pass, the person's not likely to get magically faster. But it's certainly something to think about if you two are, the two cars are close in pace, and that's where it really becomes crucial. But then again, like we keep talking about, a lot of us are doing amateur endurance races, so you're usually rolling through multiple classes, and so some passes are just kind of completely throwaway things where you're very vastly outmatching the other person's pace, and so it's not even something you think about. So the amount of passes that you're gonna have to vigorously defend are not that many. Would you agree?
Right. I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were running 22 cars in Spec Miata or Spec E46, we could have a whole day's class on how to defend that pass. Right. But like you said, we're in a multi-class endurance racing series. So if you are doing your job in that car correctly, you really should be setting up that pass. It should be part of the setup stage, setting up that pass so that you don't have to defend.
Right. And unless you got a driver who just needed to severely perk up, even in a fairly closely matched thing, if you've gotten it done faster than they did and you got around them, and it's especially if it's in a very closely matched thing and you've been setting it up for a couple laps and you finally do it, you guys, what each other's car and driver are capable of. And it's not like, you pass that person and suddenly they're going to perk up and go, oh, I'm coming back, just unless they really need to perk up a whole lot,
It's that whole, when you're battling it out, that's, if you make your passes through the S's and you suddenly make the pass and all of a sudden you're on the straightaway, you're just going to be subjected to the speed or the type of car that you're driving at that point again. So again, you can kind of try to stuff them into traffic depending on how many people are on the car or on the track at the time. But I don't know. I think that if you're battling it out, I don't know how you can defend a pass, actually.
I mean, also, ultimately, a race is a comparison of speed. And if you went by somebody, most of the time, you got by them and you're going to keep going.
Right.
In circle track racing, there's a thing called the over under, where somebody you get past and then you go under them and come back out on the other turn of the oval or whatever. So there's a little bit of that. You can always kind of have to worry about the over under, but that's way more of a circle track thing. But I'm not saying nobody ever has to defend the pass, but it's very unlikely that in amateur endurance racing you're going to be going like hammer and tongs with somebody.
You're not even thinking about it. Once you pass them, you're not even thinking about it. You're just moving on to the next situation.
And
at least that's what I'm doing. Right. As soon as I pass a person, I don't even think about them anymore. I'm already thinking about the person in front of me and what I need to do to get around them. And all of a sudden the guy shoots up past me and I just passed.
Right. And to Bill's how to defend, right? I guess the best way to defend a pass in the amateur endurance racing that we do would be exactly what Ben just said. He makes that pass and he's going to stuff them in a place where they're now stuck behind traffic, right? That's the best way, in my opinion. That's the best way to pass.
You guys gave me a hard time because I was stuffing people.
Defend that pass. That's how you defend that pass in the endurance racing that we do.
That's because you're heartless about it.
No, you guys were on me a little bit about it.
Who was? Because I was never on you about it.
No,
you're heartless. You're heartless.
Forgive you guys. Well, that's kind of asshole driving if you do that. Well, I wasn't blocking people.
Well,
what were
you describing? What were you describing doing? What were you describing
I was talking about when I was driving and I was racing. Is that if we were running in traffic, that when I was following a train and somebody was through, if I was able to put people and get them stuck in traffic or stuff them or whatever, I would do
use
that.
Use slower traffic as a pick, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and I would do that.
You
guys,
no,
it's kind of like an asshole
thing
to do. And
no, that sounds great. I am a huge asshole. I love that kind of thing. I love that.
No, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Gigantic asshole.
Now, if you're stuffing someone by cutting their nose off, that's driving like an asshole. But if you're using traffic,
did you say mass hole? Mass hole?
It was mass hole.
Mass hole.
If you're using traffic to defend that pass and make sure that they get stuck in that traffic that you have now just kind of weaved through, there's nothing wrong with that. That's
great.
That's
I was under the impression that my situation, what I was doing was just like, oh, you really shouldn't do that. That's really kind of a mean thing to do.
We were once again, we were joking.
Oh,
I don't even remember this, but I'm sure it sounds like you were describing doing the right thing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wasn't around for that conversation, so I'm
not sure I was either.
You know what? That's one thing I enjoy.
Just bail on me, guys. Here, you're like, oh, that was Bill.
No, that's one thing that I did. I find pleasure in doing that. For some reason, I just do.
No, it's great.
If I can get them stuck in traffic, maybe stuffing was the wrong word, but I don't know.
Bro,
if I could get them stuck in traffic while I'm trying to pass through,
yes,
excellent.
Absolutely.
That's racecraft. That's making production, bro. You're doing it.
Yep, that is 100% racecraft. You were using
and you should
the
enjoy
tools
it.
given to
Definitely-
you
Yeah.
to make that pass. Absolutely.
Lap it up like a Sunday. Oh yeah, that stuff to your traffic. Ha ha, suck it, dummy. Especially if they're faster than you, and if they're faster than you, and you know that your move made it where they're never going to see you. Hey, I'm getting out of this car in 10 minutes, so I got that pass done. Stuck because they're not coming back in the next 10 minutes before I got to come in. You know what I mean? It can come down to tiny victories. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it sounds like you're doing it exactly right, and possibly have learned a lot. Not from me, but from somebody.
So let's pretend, Miss Vicky.
Yes.
Every time we talk about passing, you talk about passing somebody and stuffing them in traffic. Every single time, it almost makes me think that's the only way you pass people. So let's pretend we have Miss Vicky and we want to give her another way to pass people.
Okay.
So, what would you recommend that she try to do if she's in a car that's slightly faster in braking and turns versus her opponent who's faster in straightaways? What else could she do?
Other ways to accomplish a pass?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any other ways.
Her car rotates. Her car rotates and brakes a little bit better than the other car, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if I was trying to do this at like Road Atlanta or something like that, you know, I'd be like, if I was thinking about how am I going to get past this person at Road Atlanta, they're going to blow my doors off down the front stretch. I'm going to catch them up a little bit in the braking zone. Then all the way up that hill, they're going to be kind of trying to get back on the gas, but I'm going to be wide open all the way up that hill, all the way up to turn 3. And on the way up to turn 3, they're going to brake sooner than me, and they're going to brake more than me. So I'm going to try to go by the person on the way into turn 3. And I'm going to use turn 3 where they also can't go as fast as me because I'm flopping my car body around. I'm rotating while they're just waiting. While they're waiting, I'm rotating and going. And then I'm going to blow their doors off down the S's because I can run the S's in 5th gear. And they've got to be letting off at the top, letting off in the middle. And I'm flat out all the way down to turn 5. And by the time I've gotten to turn 5 and I braked at the 1 a little bit and just jump back on the gas, they're braking way earlier than me. And they're also way behind me because I've had this whole section of track where my car does better than theirs. So by the time we get down to turn 6 and 7, I'm already doing better than them. And they're far enough back that they can't catch me on the backstretch. And then we're all back into it again.
So that's almost a perfect example of, you know, if you get it done in 3, right? If you get it done in 1, better. If you get it done in 5, you're okay. But if you get it done in 7, it doesn't matter.
Right. 7 is a good practice for the next lap where you've really built a little bit bigger advantage. But you're gonna get your lunch eaten if you pass somebody out of 7 and they got more power than you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you just have to find that section that your car is much better than their car and stay as close to them as you possibly can until you get to that section, and then drive the wheels off of your car to break a nice gap between you and them once you pass them so that they can't overtake you on that next straight that they have a lot more power than you do.
And it may take a few laps. You may be passing back and forth. I mean, I know it's sad to say. I know I hate doing that because we don't all have 350 horsepower. You know what I'm saying? So
or half.
You got to kind of live with. You got to live within your means of what you have in your car. Pass as much as you can, and sometimes it means getting passed back. Sometimes it means you got to get in the bread line and just go again.
I love it when you got 2 cars that are equal and you're battling for 5, 6, 8 laps.
Oh
awesome.
Yeah, but when it's equal in different ways, it's even more fun. It's just crazy. It's crazy fun. I love that.
Yeah.
So let's pretend you're you're Vicky now again in the car that's better turning.
I can't believe you characterize her in that way.
Well, I'm just saying.
Do you want to do a retraction, or are you
you're replacing Miss Vicky? You're in a car that brakes a little better and turns a little better.
Okay, got it.
And you're in front of the car. Is there something you can do to defend from being passed?
My car is just became the size of a 747.
Okay.
I am using all of the racetrack, all of the racing surface to make sure that you can't put your car there.
Sometimes using less of it, if I
isn't
had been
that
tracking
jerkish?
all the way out to the curb. No, let's talk about it. Sometimes if I had been tracking all the way out to all the way, putting my whole car up on the curbs, that would also leave me way open for somebody with more power to pass me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Sometimes.
Well,
sometimes I
wouldn't
might
you also lose time
sometimes
because
I
you're
might start using less of the track in places that won't really hurt me. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like maybe between turn 6 and 7 at Road Atlanta, I might not track out all the way, and I might give this person a way less advantageous entry to turn 7. So at least they're not going to blow my doors off that bad. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just about mitigating damage, but I might be riding in the middle of the track, and it's not necessarily blocking because I tracked out to mid track. I didn't track all the way out and then come back to the middle. You know what I mean? I might sacrifice a little bit of pace and run a wacky ass line, not moving all around, not making moves to block. I just might run a different line, giving them less opportunity, less geometric opportunity to get by me. So yeah, you're going to kind of sacrifice some pace, and you're going to look like a little bit of a dum dum. But also, part of making your car wide is just giving them less opportunity to go by, giving them pause, thinking like, if this guy's in the middle of the track, what is he about to do next? Like I don't mind making myself look a little crazy or a little incompetent. I've said that many times here, but I don't mind. I don't care what people think about me. Like as long as it's effective, I'm gonna try to do it. I'll put my car in a weird spot. I think the key is if you're gonna do weird moves or if you're gonna do weird car positioning,
be
do it and stick with
consistent.
it. Don't move around. But if you're gonna stick your car in a weird spot, that's your line. But you're kind of stuck with it. But you're also trying to do this to give the person room to get by and give them pause about, do I need to try this pass right now? Because sometimes you might be trying to stave somebody off, knowing you got a good pot of traffic coming. You know what I mean? You might be looking up track, being like, hey, by the time I get to turn 1, this will be all over because I'm going to get these people stuck in traffic behind me and I'll be out. Do you know what I mean? So there may be times where what you're doing may seem inane and stupid and silly to try to hold them back for one more corner, but there may be things going on that you may be about to get to your best section of track. You're just trying to hold them back for one more turn, or like I said, you might see a traffic situation that's going to come to your benefit very soon. So that's what I'm talking about too.
So that I think a lot of that goes down to racecraft and situational awareness, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and situational awareness is huge on a racetrack, and I know I say that phrase a lot, but if you know where that car is better than you on the track because you've seen it behind you for the last 8 laps, that is where you do exactly what Ben just said. You're going to run a little wacky line. You're going to kind of move your car around a little tiny bit, obviously not deliberately blocking, but you're going to make it a lot harder for them to get that pass done until you get to your fast section. Then you're going to try to, like when Vicky made that pass before, you're going to drive the wheels off of that thing in that next section, so that you can get as much distance away from them before we get back to where they are stronger than we are.
Right.
Okay. One last scenario.
What's the correct answer, Bill?
I have lots of correct answers. I'm just not giving them.
Sorry, I had to.
That's coming in part 3 of the passing series.
Okay.
What if you're the faster car and the little Miata is right behind you? Good brakes, good turning, not going to pass you on the straightaway. What does the faster car do that frustrates the Miata most?
That's funny. I finally got to be that car. I think I've only got to be that car like one time, but I got to drive the race bar Laser Shark. It's that 635 with the big M33 liter engine in it. And I mean that thing handled crazy, like just the weirdest handling. Like you'd have to wait for the outside, whatever wheel was outside front, you'd have to wait for it to oscillate enough times before you could really get back on the gas. So you had to time the throttle with the oscillations of the front suspension. It was just a terrible car except for the motor. And that was one of the few times where I've had enough motor where I could pretty much keep anybody at the track behind me. And I think I was leading the Lucky Dog race, and I was leading like the Sunday Lucky Dog race. This wacky car that shouldn't be leading anything. But there was this Miata with a bunch of aero, all the things that car didn't have. It had aero, it had good brakes, obviously good handling. It was a Miata with great shocks, and so every lap around CMP, every straightaway I would have an advantage, and then this Miata would be all over me every kind of twisty section, but would never have enough power, maybe, or guts, or maybe enough treachery to kind of try to put stuff the car in on me. So I kept seeing them not trying to pass. Maybe opportunities where they probably could have if they had old Ben Dawson behind the wheel. But either way, they weren't getting the pass done in the twisty stuff, and I was just fast enough down the straightaway where I would pull enough of a gap on the straightaway that they would pull right back up onto me and braking, and then just couldn't pass me anywhere else. So at least in that situation, I just tried to make the best of getting a good corner exit onto any of the straightaway stuff. Like even if I knew it was going to mess them up a little bit for me to do whatever I had to do with that wacky BMW to get my optimal exit. So I wasn't that worried about them. By the time we're slowing down, if they haven't already gotten inside, because that's where I'm trying to think back to this scenario. But yeah, they would pull out like all the time to try to make passes, and then I would just get on the gas, and they were just nowhere. I mean, I wasn't like blowing their doors off, but they just couldn't quite get there with the amount of power I had, despite the significant other advantages that they had in like braking and handling. So that was my thing, is that I just always tried to make sure I was real squared up and had the wheels open. Anytime I could get to the gas, I was just trying to keep the throttle open as much as I could, because that was my only thing to keep them behind me. And I think I kept them behind me the whole time I was in the car.
That's awesome. I think the biggest thing, especially with a Miata behind you in the series that we run, right, the endurance stuff that we do, I think the biggest thing is, if you are that car that doesn't outhandle that Miata, but you have a lot more power, you need to take that inside line completely away from that Miata driver. Because if it looks like they can put a matchbox on the racetrack, they're going to stuff the Miata in there, and they're going to either make the pass happen or they're going to take both of you out. So you just need to cover that inside line and get the good exit out onto that straight, like that he did with Race Bar. Get that good exit out of that corner and on that straight, and outpower them to the next corner.
So it sounds to me like I recommended being very exact with the exit and making sure you got that exit nailed. And Jeremy recommends being very exact and perfectly on the turn in to make sure you dominate the apex. So it sounds to me like if you've got a lot of power and want to keep the really fast guys behind you, you just need to be really good at car placement and timing, right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
That's what it sounds like to me, yeah.
So the correct answer.
I thought you were waiting for one more. Here we go.
So this is what they did to me. I would never do such a thing to anyone, but there was a guy in a Mustang 350R, which sounds ever so lovely. And here I am in my son's Toyota 86 first gen. They got nothing, right? So here is what they would do. Going into any curvy section where I have a chance, right? They would make their car a little wide and go just a little bit slower than they had to. So when I was coming out of the slow section, we're starting, 5, 6, 7, 10 miles an hour slower, but 5 or 6, 10 miles an hour slower for them is
Doesn't
just
matter.
One more toe, right? They don't care. And they would just walk me like by miles in the straightaway.
That's true. Now that you're saying this, it sounded familiar to my race bar experience too. I'm sure there were times where I kind of stifled them in their best sections too, knowing I could just stomp on the gas once we got out.
Yeah. I mean, they don't care. Coming out of a turn, it's 35 or 39. Who cares? They still end up at 145. It doesn't matter.
It matters in the Miata.
I'm sure I was repressing the Miata in a similar fashion now that you say that.
That's kind of where I was going, Mr. Dawson, because I was sitting there going, I know exactly what you're doing. So, yes.
I hate that we didn't have video of that one, because it's one of these ones where I got out and like, we got video of that? He's like, I left it in Virginia or something. I'm like, God damn it.
All right. Anything left on defending a pass, my dear? Do you have anything? Do you feel like you can now a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Well,
got some weapons?
I didn't realize I was already doing like 2 of them. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I need to add to this that we haven't said, we should have been saying every 2 minutes this entire series, is watch your mirrors, look down track. Watch your mirrors, look down track. Watch your mirrors,
look at the flag stations.
Look down track. Also notice the flag stations. But I mean, that's what your eyes need to be doing all the time, regardless of all this other blocking and tackling that we're talking about. Watch your mirrors, look down track, check the station. Just constant vision rotation that's keeping you situationally aware. So these are just refrains that you have to always train yourself to do. And there's no better substitute than DE driving, HPDE events for this sort of thing. Go layer as many of those on as you can alongside with your racing before you start racing. This is the kind of thing that will make you a very good racer. But, just having all this stuff to be very mechanical is huge for safety, your competitor's safety. Everybody's got kids. We all love each other. Watch your mirrors.
I love you, man.
Right. 100%. It's all about exactly that. Situational awareness, knowing what's going on, training yourself to be aware of your mirrors and know that they're there. And when you hear a race car driver tell you that he doesn't ever use his mirrors,
who's saying that?
You know that that's the guy you want to stay right away from on track and don't get anywhere near that person.
But Jeremy, I already passed him, so I don't have to worry about him anymore.
Yeah. Yep. That's a story for another day, Ben.
They've already been dealt with.
Good. That's good to know.
Speaking of stories for another day, do we have anything more to talk about passings? Is there going to be a part 3?
There is going to be a part 3, at least a part 3. I think we got a lot of meat on this bone. And I mean, the only other thing I would say is if you want to get good at passing, go run a bunch of HPDEs and get really good at driving. Get great at driving, and then you're going to be magically all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm great at passing too, because not everybody's as good at the driving as I am.
You know what else is good for learning how to pass? In all seriousness, I'm not even going to say this in any facetious way whatsoever. I know that's shocking to anybody listening.
What? What's that?
Endurance racing. If you want to learn how to pass, go to a Lemons race. You get 130 cars out there. You'll find somebody to pass.
That's been my refrain about Lemons racing for a long time, is that you might get a license to race in club racing and race in a certain class, even a highly subscribed class in the big field. But I still say you'll pass. I think a good driver could potentially pass more cars in one stint in Lemons than some club racers will pass their entire club racing career.
And I tell you, Lemons racing will teach you situational awareness.
Yeah, because you got to be watching out for that minivan that's going 30, and then that Ferrari that's coming. There's all. You're right. You have to be watching all the lanes all the time, and
all of it.
Just one more advert for Lemons, but I mean, it's going to teach you to be a better, more consistent driver within the bounds. Because every time you mess up, you got to go in and talk about it. Get spray painted, and your buddies have to get spray painted, and you got to eat weird stuff off the hood of your car. You know what I mean? But you're losing time. You lose time, which is the worst thing. So I think I certainly can say Lemons taught me to be a better driver within the bounds. Just because I was like, I don't want to be the guy who's got to be a loser going to the penalty box. So anyway, yes, Lemons is great, and it's great for teaching you the ins and outs of traffic and the coming and going. Because you're practicing all the time. You're either being passed all the time or you're passing somebody all the time in Lemons, because the fields are so huge. There's so much benefit to racing Lemons that so many people out in the racing world are too snotty or too into themselves to ever figure out. There's so much good in Lemons, and I wish everybody would go race Lemons.
So just to entertain ourselves while you guys were talking, I did a quick Google search, and if you look at F1, the mecca of racing, the record for the number of overtakes in a race is 161. Now that's every car, all 20 something cars, 161 passes total in the field. Even with Garage Heroes in Training at gmail.com, we pass more than 161 cars every weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, It's not even close. So you can get an entire racing series of F1 experience with just one Lemons race. It's almost the same. Sure. It's so close. It's so
very
close. So close.
Nearly identical. Yeah,
it is. Especially the pit stops. We almost look the same. Just different. But that's
the only difference I know.
We're the same.
Lemons won't allow tire warmers. Lemons is no tire warmers, but everybody else that gets them. So other than that, identical.
Yeah. That
Wait,
takes...
what? That's actually a thing in Lemons?
No. I'm just totally joking. I was just thinking the most far-fetched thing I could think of from Lemons.
Well, the tire warmers are called Thompson Race in August. That's what the tire warmers are.
That is the most fun track. I love that track.
I just thought about it. I have not raced at Thompson since 2018-19.
Ben, you should come up and race that track.
I got to come up and do a lot of things, but I hear Thompson's great.
Not this year. We'll be there next year, though. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached pass number 2. Pass number 3 will coming to a theater near you soon.
Yeah, and please tell us what you heard here, or that you thought was right, or that you thought you want to do differently, or tell us what else you'd like to hear us talk about with passing. Because we've done it, we're learning to do it, we like doing it, we want to know how you do it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No. Thank you.
No, oh no,
No.
This could go
So
on
my
for quite a while.
my 5-year-old started doing that, and she literally couldn't stop herself. We like had to put her in another room. She just started saying to the wall, "No, thank you."
You know what?
That's awesome.
I highly recommend that you not expose her to.
What's that?
If you go, since the theme for this week seems to be wrestling stuff, don't get her started with the Steve Austin what.
Okay.
Oh God.
But you do
What?
you
What?
do have to get her
What?
started with the what time is it?
No, you
It's
don't.
tummy time.
Tummy time.
That just means it's bedtime around here after a podcast.
We've just made it through her NSYNC, her Backstreet Boys, and her NSYNC phase. Those
Oh,
are
boy.
behind us already. So
It'll
we're
come
open to
back.
new phases. Oh,
It'll come
man,
back.
I know. And as soon as I say those words, like, "Hey, we're past those phases," I'm like, "Nah."
Oh, wait till you get into the sparkle phase.
Oh man, so
They
much to
all-
look forward to.
Welcome
There's
to the world of
so
J-pop.
much shine that's going to take
Mm.
place. Like they're going to hit justice.
That's a step unto itself.
Yes. All
Okay.
the
It's a
sparkle and
store.
shine. And
It's a
they're
store.
they're in it for like
Okay.
2 years.
Mhm.
And,
Well,
and
I
then they're
guess
just like
I'm ready.
done with it.
It's like when you were dating a stripper, Ben. You know, there's just glitter everywhere.
Good Lord.
There's
powder
never
and
been a
broken
stripper on the
dreams.
planet who would talk to me for any reason. Not even for ready money. Don't worry about it.
Hey,
What
just
about-
go
what
in.
about
Just
folded
go into
money?
the strip club and just tell them that you are in school to become a plastic surgeon. It works.
geez. Come on, man. And I just had a mastectomy. All right,
Now
we're
you-
definitely getting off the rails here.
I don't even see the rails from where we're at, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry I was late. I
He
day went
asked,
a lot longer.
He asked for
Are you
us to delay the podcast a week so he can be there, and then he goes to Phoenix.